Jim, we just talked about the federal budget. I don't want to call it, but you're saying not to worry, we're not going to election. This is pretty much a slam dunk, right?
And a lead pipe cinch. And what else did I put in there? I forget what I...
Sure thing.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
It's in the bag.
In the bag.
And listen, I'd like to joke with you, but to a certain extent, I'm getting a little bit angry. I know how sausages are made, buddy. I've been doing it for more than 40 years, and I know you want to keep people interested. You want to keep... Could we spend 1/4 of the amount of time that we're discussing these various Game of Thrones manifestos as to who's going to vote, who's going to abstain, who's going to show up, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and maybe talk about whether or not this budget or this government has made, and I mean, I know that it's spelled off in scrums and sound bites about a real issue like affordability, which is now becoming a buzzword, but I'm afraid it's real. This is an issue that strikes everyone, regardless of how much money they make, regardless of who they support politically. We are getting screwed at the cash register. And this is, and you're talking to someone who's not crazy about the idea of government intervening, but the government had better step in on this, because I think people can only take so much. It's becoming absolutely ridiculous to see whether it's in terms of simple inflation on grocery items, on food items, or shrinkflation on the same, being charged the same price for a much smaller portion of what you used to buy before. And then that shock, and I'm sorry, but it is shocking, even if you're at Costco, the shock you see when you get your bill and you figure, you have this little game in your head, probably about $200, maybe $250. Turns out it's closer to $375, and you're like, what the hell happened there? And I didn't even buy meat, so it's like, there is a real crisis in this country. And you know what, guys like me, I'm not asking Argentina to cry for me, Aaron. I'm doing okay. But as I've said on the show before, I'm thinking about where I was, when I was in my 20s, newly married, and you're just starting off. You've already been told by all the experts, you're never going to have a house. But man, oh man, can you at least come out of the local grocery store without feeling you've been mugged? And yes, I think the government does have a role to play in that. So, I'm not too worried about who is going to be voting for which way. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a government. We're not going to have an election because even a blind man could see that any party that triggered an election, especially around Christmas time, will be crucified, if you allow me to mix my religious metaphors. But the fact of the matter is, Aaron, there are huge economic issues in this country that affect you no matter who you are, no matter who you support, and I really don't think the government, our government, is paying anywhere near as much attention to them as it should.
At the end of it all, Jim, and it's funny because I've seen this now in a couple of different surveys. We're sort of talking tangentially about the budget here. Not a lot of Canadians, as you're pointing out here, the same sort of idea, are very happy with anything they heard. Like, there's nothing here they can take to the bank, so to speak.
Absolutely not. And the other thing, and I just want to be fair before people start texting the show and saying, how much are the Conservatives paying them? Yeah. No, in fact, what I'm saying is when I say the government's got to step in, we need more than 3-word slogans, which is all I have heard ever from the Poilievre Conservatives. But I got to tell you, as much as we're being screwed over at the cash register, we're even being taken for a bigger ride by our politicians, as far as I'm concerned. This is a fundamental issue, and it's not going to go away, and it is going to have an effect on the day-to-day lives of Canadians in every part of this country, and it seems to be this blind spot. We're spending way too much time talking about generational investments in, the defense industry. I think it's great that we're no longer going to have to go to Honest Edge to rent some submarines, okay? But the fact is, in the here and now, there is a very clear crisis, financial crisis, that's hitting Canadians, not corporations, not the stock market, not the big numbers, it's the little numbers. All those little numbers that, when you put them all together, make up Canada. And I don't think that's being looked at all by the politicians, by their budgets, or by their financial planners.
All right. Jim, let me move on and talk about what we're starting to hear now. And I guess they were just waiting for the moment to be right, and that's the PQ. First was Paul St. Plamondon. Pascal Paradis has been on twice. He was on with me last week on With the Lies Today. They're outselling this blue book now, chapter by chapter. I found it interesting, too. Obviously they've thought about how to approach this. The fact that Fred Beauchemin of the Liberals, right, came out and said, hey, this is dangerous, stop talking about it, these are stupid ideas you're floating. And, of course, the PQ reaction is, oh, we expected this kind of attack. Yeah. What do you make of this?
Well, listen, he like I say, Paul Saint-Pierre, he's a good politician. He comes across as a stand-up guy, but the fact of the matter is he has painted himself into a corner with this pledge to hold a referendum. He has managed to shackle himself to 40 years of political failure on the part of the Parti Québécois with that one stupid option that nobody wants to buy into. And don't talk to me about the 95 referendum. I was there, and there's a lot of unanswered questions about that particular vote. But here we go. You and I had this conversation back in 2014 when Pauline Marois was, going into the details. She was being scrummed out. We'll keep our passport. We'll keep the dog. We'll do this, we'll that. And all of a sudden, you could see, I was there, you could see the people in the scrum just going, is she serious? Is she actually saying this stuff? I hope my tape deck's working. And here we are again. We're going to have some money. It's interesting, though, because it first came up, Quebec will have its own currency, blah, 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 blah. And then it says, it could take 10 years. It's just serious. There's going to be an election in a year's time. You're talking about your 10-year plan for the money, and you're telling us to trust you, and things will be tough. We don't want tough. Whether we speak English or French, if we live in Quebec, life is not exactly a bowl of economic cherries right now. So if you want to turn around and say, I honor him, his honesty. I honor him, his candor, and say, you know what, things are going to be rough. It's going to be rough. So apparently all you have to do to beat the Parti Québécois, human nature being what it is saying, listen, if you vote for those guys, things are going to be rough. If you vote for us, they're not going to be rough. Do the math. And that's where we are. And I thought maybe after all this burbling for nearly half a century, Aaron, we might be able to have a debate that focused on something that people care about. For example, the fact that people, even though we're not talking about it every day, maybe every other day, that our healthcare system is in real crisis and is being blown up by a bunch of incompetence in the Coalition Avenir Québec. The fact our education system is not doing us any good whatsoever. We are not producing, even national class graduates. And here we are talking about whether or not we're going to have our own theoretical money and our own theoretical nation. Come on, we've been there, we've done that, we're tired. Move on. And I for one, have said this on the show, that I fully expected that PSPP would find a way to sidestep it. Maybe he will. It's a long time between now and next October. But I got to tell you, right now, he's not doing himself any good. He gets points for honesty, but on the other hand, it's also like, okay, he's honest, but honestly, this is the last guy on earth I would vote for. I think that's what a lot of people are thinking right now.
Let me ask I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we're going to be hearing more and more of this because they're going to be releasing chapters of this Blue Book going forward. This idea, two things. Number one, he pointed to Alberta in a clip I played last week saying, look at Alberta, and theirs has nothing to do with language. And I pointed out that if you look at Alberta, the separatist movement there has not even been able to garner 170,000 votes, which is what they needed to have this thing move forward. But almost 500,000 Albertans have voted for, keeping Canada together. So that doesn't really fly. What do you make of this part, though, where and this is not new, where the PQ will look and say, well, wait a sec, if we were to do this and go ahead with our strategy, we would not be the only ones. There are 28 other countries that have done this as well, and it's worked okay for them.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, and I really would appreciate it if someone could tell me what those 28 countries are, because it beats the hell out. I'm thinking about it. I know that the Czechs and the Slovaks split. Okay, I know that there was Brexit, but that's not quite the same thing. I'm trying to figure out what country that I may have heard of, and I'm not trying to be snooty here, but what country that many of us would have heard of that has gone through this, because I don't know what it is. And especially with the project that's being presented by this party, which is one that, as far as I'm concerned, is backed up with a lot of enthusiasm, but very little in the way of facts. And by the way, did you like how if you criticize these plans, you're accused of slandering them? And people who are Parti Québécois members are being told, don't be dissuaded by that. Just remember, you have the courage of your convictions and, quote, your loyalty to Quebec. And if that doesn't scare the living bejesus out of me, I don't know what does. But I don't like the way this is going in terms of the Blue Book with these little throwaway lines. So I think really, and once again, it's incumbent on the people in my business to turn around and not being combative and not being antagonistic. But as I say, keep asking questions. When these things are said, question them. What are those 28 countries? Just put it. Is it in the Blue Book? What page is it on? I want to find out. I personally would like to find out. But right now, we seem to be drifting away here, and there's a lot of headlines coming out of here, and there's a lot of talk about the enthusiasm, suggesting perhaps this enthusiasm is infectious, even though we know every single poll by every single company that's conducted in Quebec shows the one option that they're desperately trying to sell is the one option Quebecers do not want to know about. So which way do we go? Who knows?
Jim, I don't let you go without talking about what I'm going to ask when we come back. We have the REM, the brand new line, opened on the weekend. Today's really the first full day of service where people actually have to pay for the privilege. Just give me your thoughts on, because I've seen not a single post complaining about how how the ride is or was. Everyone seems to think this is great.
We talked about this on Friday. I said that on the one hand, experience has told me to be very, very worried. Expect the worst and hope for the best, and I'll maintain that point of view with the REM. But all that said, I'm glad that they had, and the day's not up yet, but I'm glad that so far so good. There have been no glitches. Mind you, there's been no snow and there's been no freezing rain. So we'll see how that's going to work, buddy. But like I say, I wish this nothing but success. Okay, a multi-billion-dollar project that actually works. What a concept for Quebec. Let's hope that it happens. Let's hope that people finally are getting some public transit. Never mind world-class public transit. How about just some Montreal-class public transit that works reliably, that is not going to charge you the eyes out of your head? If that works, I'm all for it. So, like I say, so far, so good. If only because, don't forget, folks, that's your pension money that's rolling along those rails.
By the way, Jim, I'm not embarrassed to say this. I started the top of the show today by saying I had to have my winter tires put on, right? And I had to take the metro to get from where I live, so in Griffintown, all the way up to Jean Talon Namur. Metro was pretty good.
Yeah, I love you. There's another CJAD host whose first name begins with the letter A, who also, it's always like when he takes the metro, it's like he was on a ride at Disney, But like, listen, guys, it's been going pretty. It does work. When it works, it works. Okay, so I'm happy for both of you. I'm glad you both like it.
I didn't know where to put the ticket, but other than that, the woman in the booth helped me showed me where to put the ticket. I figured that part out. James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim. That's true, by the way.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.